Welcome to another edition of the channel's Mailbag. So what is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is the part of the channel that you guys actually control. It's based on comments, questions, general feedback that you guys leave either on the YouTube channel, the website, or through one of my social media feeds. Mailbag contains what I think the answer is, what I think my view of the comment is, or sometimes, I just throw it out to the wider audience and say, what do you guys think? That's what Mailbag is. So let's get in to the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment question comes from Eli John Caro. And this was in response to connecting the Roland TB-3, TR8 and System 1 together, a video I did in December 2015, a long time ago. Actually I think it's Eljon. Eljon writes, for unexplained reasons my TB-3 stopped receiving MIDI clock from my Beats Step Pro. I've also tried to hook it up with the TR8 and the same problem happened. Any advice much appreciated. When these sort of things happen, it's a nightmare because trying to work out what you changed. Probably you changed something and didn't even realise you changed it. My go-to here would have been what source is the clock looking at, because if you set it to look exclusively internally, then any external clock source just won't work. If you set it to work externally, then it should look for the external clock source. So you've got to make sure the external clock source is switched on before you switch the TB3 on, or any of the other RA gear. Otherwise, what it does, it looks for an external clock source on the MIDI connection, and if it can't find it, it automatically goes to the internal. And the only way to swap back is, of course, to switch it off and switch it back on again, which is a bit of a nightmare. But that's reality. Now, I did do a video about that, and if I remember, I'll put the video link below this. But at about 1 minute 11 seconds in, there is a demonstration of how to reset it back from the internal to the external clock, if that truly is what's happened. Next comment question comes from Arcade Hernandez. Arcadio Hernandez, get that right. This was a response to a Korg 01W with issues, hard to source EEPROMs mailbag I did in April 2023. And Arcado writes, hi, I have the 01W. When it's turned on, it will just play piano. All programs have gone. I cannot be able to reset it at all. Few minutes, it will shut itself down, whereby I turn back on. That could be the issue. Sorry, this is kind of a translation from Portuguese, and it's done a pretty poor translation from A to B. So I think what I'm being asked here is that it's lost all sounds is the first thing, and the second thing is it tends to shut itself down, and when you turn it back on, everything is gone from memory. I think that's what I'm being asked. Anyway, I sort of wrote back and said, well, I guess it's one of those situations where you have to work out what's going on, and then therefore where to start. Seeing as you only have the piano sound, I'm not sure on the Korg 01W what the default tone is, but the first thing I would do is probably replace the battery, as a dead battery would possibly explain the keyboard inability to retain and store sounds. Basically, on the older keyboards, as many of you already know, the battery maintains constant voltage across the memory chips, and if you don't have a voltage across the memory chips, when the mains power goes off, that secondary voltage is lost. Sorry, the voltage is lost across memory chips. The memory chips wipe themselves. They're volatile. Second thing I'd probably do here is see if you can get hold of the factory sounds disc either on floppy or via Sysex. and load these in once you've changed the battery. If the backup circuitry is still good, then the O1W should theoretically retain the tones that you've loaded in following disconnection from the mains power. So that kind of either solves or disproves one theory, that the battery is causing some of the problem. Now, if the tones are once again lost following disconnection from power, then there is something more going on in the keyboard. A synth of this age shutting down normally indicates you've got a power supply problem. What I would do is access the internals of the synth, power up the synth, and wait for it to shut down after 15 minutes. You stated in your comment, disconnect from the mains power, and then if you have access to a thermal camera, look at the power board in the synth, and I suspect something is getting rather hot. And that was probably engaged in some sort of thermal cutout circuitry. Be careful what you touch, as parts can get really hot if this is a thermal issue. If it turns out not to be a thermal issue and you have to put a meter on all the power supply outlets to ensure that you're getting the correct voltages going to the correct boards, and there will be several voltages coming off the power supply. You will probably have plus or minus 12, plus or minus 15. You'll have a 5-volt rail which is used to run the circuitry inside the synth itself, and there may be another supply, maybe plus 12 volts, which is going off to the disk drive. So you need to start tracking those back to see where you've got problems. Pound to a penny, I think this is probably a thermal issue.